appreciate you tuning in to Birds 365 here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. John McMullen and Jody McDonald here with you. We will put a third voice into the equation here. For Johnny Mac and I, this is week number 5, so show number 21, which means we've got some catching up to do. I believe our next guest has actually done more Eagle drafts than we have shows here on Birds 365. He's been doing it for a while, covering the Philadelphia Eagles for the Daily News, Inquirer.com, Philly.com. Our buddy Paul Domowitch joins us here on Birds 365. How are you this morning, Domo?
I'm doing great with two of my favorite people in the world, doing great. And thanks for reminding me how old I
am. We're right there with you, Domo. So, let's get into it. First impressions. I think it's, Devontae Smith, obviously. It's Tom Donahoe a little bit. And it's, injuries and Landon Dickerson.
Yeah. I mean, I thought they had some good picks. Day 2 was the problem I had. I talked to Brian Baldinger yesterday, and he is just drooling over Landon Dickerson. And there's no questioning this kid could be an all-pro talent. The injury history in the second round after what they've experienced in the past with Sidney Jones and saying they would never do this again, I questioned that pick. And then I had a problem with the third-round pick because they could have had Aaron Robinson. They not only lost him, they lost a good slot corner, or potential good slot corner, but he went to the Giants where he's probably going to be an immediate starting slot corner up there. And they got a guy, Milton Williams is an analytics pick. Can jump high, can run fast. I don't think he can play inside. He gained weight because they were using him at 260 at Louisiana Tech and moving him inside and outside, and he was kind of getting beat up inside. He was better outside, and I think that's probably where he's going to make this team as ultimately as a 4-3 end. So I don't think it really addresses the defensive tackle situation.
Damo, you mentioned how if Aaron Robinson was the guy that the Eagles were thinking about drafting, traded down, watched him come off the board, he goes to the Giants. So the Giants one-up them in that round, but the Eagles had one-up the Giants in the first round by moving ahead of them to get Devonta Smith. Both teams will deny that the guy that came off the board was the guy that they actually wanted, but we can stick strong to our beliefs. The Giant Eagle rivalry is pretty damn good to begin with. Is it heightened? Is that much more because of what's transpired the last couple of days in the draft?
I'm sorry, say that again, Jody.
I said the Giants-Eagles rivalry because of the back and forth of their draft maneuvers, picking guys off that maybe the other one wanted. Will that add to the rivalry of the Giants-Eagles, or was that forgotten as soon as they wrapped up the draft?
I think from the fan standpoint of view, I don't think it's a thing that'll entice the rivalry, but it's kind of like if Aaron Robinson turns out to be a very good player and Milton Williams kind of dies out and we forget about him real quick, you're talking about for the second year in a row a comparison fans and critics can make. Last year it was Rager versus Justin Jefferson. This year people can look at that Aaron Robinson pick and have second guess it if it turns out that way.
Now, the one thing I would say for the Eagles, perhaps, Dom, I'll throw this at you, is that you mentioned Aaron Robinson is probably going to be penciled in as a slot corner. And the Eagles really need that outside corner opposite Darius Slay. So, Avonte Maddox did not succeed. At least you could probably kick him inside. Maybe he can hold up. So positional value, do you put that in the equation when you talk about Williams? And it is interesting because I agree with you on the analytics part of it, and he's got very short arms. So if they do want to play him at defensive end, that kind of raises a red flag in my mind. But positional value as a whole, defensive line versus slot corner, do you think that played into how he's thinking?
Possibly, although they insist that position meant nothing. But clearly, this is a team that has always valued the offensive and defensive linemen. That's how they want to. That's how they built this team in the past. That's how they want to rebuild it now. So, and McPherson, the guy they took in the fourth round, probably is more suited to play outside than Aaron Robinson. So, I mean, he'll compete for a job there faster than Robinson would. Robinson might have been able to step in and play in the slot, but you don't want Avonte Maddox outside anymore. We saw enough of that.
Yeah.
He's either got to be a slot or a safety going down into the future.
Damo, let me get with you about one of their day 3 picks, and that's the running back from Memphis, Kenneth Gainwell. Again, one thing that surprised me about the Eagles draft overall was they were willing to take some chances. Certainly the offensive lineman from Alabama, his injury history, boom or bust possibility. Same thing with Gainwell, a guy who sat out this year, opted out, but the year before was absolutely one of the best running backs in the country. Now he comes in here, could be great, could set the world on fire, could challenge Sanders for the starting running back spot, or he could be a guy who just never reverts to what he was before he decided to take a year off from football. Did you like the gamble the Eagles took there?
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. I'm not even sure it's a gamble, Jody. I mean, I think this kid, in today's NFL where your backs have to catch the ball. I mean, this guy's he was part slot receiver, part running back at Memphis, just like Tony Pollard and every other running back. Antonio Gibson last year, and this kid was ahead of Antonio Gibson on the depth chart 2 years ago in Memphis, and Antonio Gibson was a 2nd round pick last year. So I think he'll help them. I think he and Miles Sanders will make a nice rotation. I still think they need a banger that can go between the tackles, because I don't think it's going to be Jordan Howard. I don't know how much he has left, but they're not going to do a whole lot of that. They believe, they want to be able to throw a lot to their backs, and I think this guy will help them. They'll rotate him and Miles.
Now, Dama, what'd you think about day 3 as a whole? A lot of hybrid guys, mostly defensive picks. Other than Gainwell, it was all defense. Couple undersized edge rushers. You have the Jacoby Stevens from LSU, who played safety for the most part. The Eagles listed him as a linebacker. You look at the 7th round pick, he played the edge. They listed him as a linebacker. Does that give us any inkling of what Jonathan Gannon wants to do? Is he going to change up things in the back 7 a little bit?
Yeah, I don't. It didn't surprise me that the pick I like is Stevens. Every team in this league can't get enough of cover safeties now that can, so that you can play 3 safeties in sub packages. So I think that's where they envision him. The two edge rushers. They had production in college. So that's when you get to the 6th round, you're just looking for guys that either were very productive in college or have great measurables, just one trait that you can grab onto and hope that maybe they turn out to be players. The tackle from USC doesn't do too much for me, and I don't, he's a 2-gap player that can't rush the passer.
Yeah, it looks like a 2-down player to me.
Yeah. So I don't know exactly, where they, is he do they envision him rotating with Javon Hargrave on 1st and 2nd down? I'm not sure. I don't think he's going to be a guy that you see ever playing a significant role.
Dama, one of the guys that the Eagles were able to get to terms with as soon as the draft ended was the quarterback from Georgia, who
Newman.
I actually thought Newman was going to be drafted. I thought he'd be a day 3 pick in either the 6th or the 7th round. Didn't happen. The Eagles jumped on him immediately, got him signed. Again, another guy who decided to opt out, sit out, had flashed prior to, so you get that very good upside. The Eagles did not draft a quarterback. We talk about they stick to their DNA and stick to the trenches. Well, part of the DNA is quarterback factory, and they always have to have a new one coming in. Didn't have to use a draft pick to get Newman. I thought it was a damn good sign. Doesn't mean the kid's ever going to be a quarterback in the league, but just from a prospect perspective, I thought it was a good move by the Eagles. How much are we going to see of Jamie Newman this preseason?
Well, he's going to compete for the 3rd quarterback job since they don't have another quarterback. I like the signing. He's got a lot of the same traits that Hurts had. That was the one problem I had with them bringing in Flacco. If something happens to Hurts or you bench him, you're going from what he brings to what Flacco brings, which is not much mobility. This kid's got, I think if he had played last year, he certainly would have been drafted. I like that pick, and I like They took a wide receiver from his name escapes me, but a wideout from Florida.
Trevon Grimes, yeah.
I'm assuming Brian Johnson knows, is obviously is familiar with this kid, having been the offensive coordinator down there. So, I think they kind of have an idea of how he might be able to compete for a job on this roster.
Yeah, I mean, it's good you brought that up. I was going to go into that. Trevon, Paul, is 6'4", so you look at this team needs an X receiver. I brought that up with Nick Sirianni day one with Devontae Smith because they made a big deal about Devontae's such a good route runner. He can play every position, and that's what Nick Sirianni believes in. But I kind of brought up, okay, I'll buy that. But even if you buy that, that means the other guys got to move around. And I've seen enough of them to know that they can't do that.
Yeah.
So at what point do you have to start making sure you get people for the slot, for the X position? And maybe that limits how you can use Devontae Smith. Am I crazy, or is that legitimate?
No, every coach we talk to, John, seems to tell you, oh yeah, we move all our guys around.
Yeah.
Now, there's no one position. They have to learn all of them, and that never ends up being the case. They put them, where their strengths are, and I think that'll be the case with Sirianni too.
Yeah.
Understood. But how about from a quarterback perspective? We got a chance to see Jalen Hurts for a handful of games last year. Should have seen him for one more half. But I digress. Sorry about that, Nate Sudfeld. I think a lot of that is determined by what your quarterback is capable of doing, how flexible you can be with your wide receivers. Is Hurts going to be able to flash the traits that he is because of what he can do, going to be able to relieve some of the responsibility off the wide receivers as far as positionally and how they're going to be used?
Well, the one thing about Hurts and the moves they've made and the people they've got coming back is by the end of this season, we will have no question one way or another whether Jalen Hurts can play. I mean, he's going to have probably the line is back healthy. It's going to be probably one of the better and more physical lines in the league this year. So, I mean, he's going to get protection, which, was not the case last year for either he or Wentz. And Devonta, I mean, he's getting a weapon that he knows that he played college ball with for a year or two. And a guy that is going to get open. So, I mean, he's going to be there will be no excuse for Jalen Hurts this year. And I think if Nick Sirianni is any kind of offensive coach, he'll find a way to get this guy open. And I think, I think Devonta will make Jalen Reagor a better receiver. Just because, that's typically the case, but there's going to be so much attention paid to Smith wherever they line him up that it's going to create opportunities for Reagor. You got Goddard in the middle, and we still don't know what's going to happen with Zach Ertz. I doubt he'll be back, but
still here though.
The kid's going to have receivers. The quarterback's going to have people to throw to.
Yeah, and let's continue on that Jalen Hurts vein, and make sure you read Domo, by the way, in Inquirer.com. That piece with Baldy was great, breaking down the Eagles draft. I do want to bring up Jalen for the one thing that Justin Fields is on the board, Domo. I didn't think the Eagles probably didn't think that was going to happen. Now, They weren't thinking about quarterback, but does that make you do a double take and say, do we have to take this kid? I know you talk to a lot of personnel people. We've talked to a lot of personnel people. To a man, when you asked about Fields and Trey Lance, and Trey obviously went number 3, so it wasn't concerned. Everyone said they just have much higher ceilings. Did the Eagles not see that?
They clearly went into this knowing what they were going to do if this situation presented itself. And even after the trade down, if one of those guys like Fields dropped to them, that they were not going to take them, that they've decided. All I can figure is that their approach is we're giving Jalen Hurts a chance to prove that he's a franchise quarterback this year. If he's not, they have the ammunition next year to do something, whether it's draft a quarterback in next year's draft with those 2 and possibly 3 first-round picks they'll have, trade for one, sign one in free agency. I just don't think they won't. And I don't know what they think of Fields. I mean, my feeling about this draft is that, the quarterbacks always get pushed up. I love these kids like Fields and Trey Lance. But, I mean, there's 5 quarterbacks taken in the first 12 picks. 3 of them probably are going to fail. So, you take Fields and he doesn't pan out. They've got something in Devonta Smith. He's safe. He's probably going to be a Pro Bowler if he doesn't get hurt. I mean, you can't go wrong there. And then you just wait and see what you got in Hurts and go from there.
I think you've got the right read on it, Damo, but the question is, do the Eagles have the right read on it? Let me go on record. I did it this weekend on my CBS shows. Might as well do it here. Justin Fields will be the best quarterback in Chicago over the last 70 years. Take it back to Sid Luckman in the 50s. That's how bereft they've been of quarterbacks. It's not going to be a whole of a lot. Now, we all love Jimmy Mack here in town. Came here, put the Eagle green on, buddy man, won a Super Bowl. We all know, or at least the 3 of us know, because we're old enough, that the Bears won the Super Bowl. They did because of defense and Walter Payton, not Jim McMahon. So it doesn't take a whole hell of a lot to be the best Bears quarterback in 70 years. I think he will be just that. And yes, we'll be talking about how did the Eagles pass on Fields for years to come. But that's an aside. Back to the Eagles. Zach Ertz is still here. I thought it was a foregone conclusion. He was going to be gone by the end of this weekend. Howie Roseman specifically asked about him, talked about great guy. He's under contract. We still love Zach Ertz. Was that all just a dog and pony show, or are the Eagles going to actually try and mend fences, make this work, bring Zach Ertz back to this football team?
Yeah, that's a good question, Jody. If he wanted to come back, I think they would certainly. I mean, there's no downside to bringing him back. You keep him for the year. You let him become a free agent. You get your compensation the year after that, and go on with your life. And Zach has a chance to kind of spend this year on a goodbye tour with the fans. But he doesn't right now. He's kind of in the Carson Wentz situation. He didn't want to come back. He wants out. Unless that changes, what you don't want to do, given what he's meant to this team, what he's given to this team and community, you don't want to keep him here if he doesn't want to be here. That's just a bad situation for both sides. But they're not getting anything for him. I mean, nobody's making any significant offers. I think they're kind of hoping they could get a pick maybe next year for him. They traded away 2 late round picks in the draft and got a 5th round pick. You would think you could at least do that for Zach Ertz.
Yeah.
So I still don't think there's any way he comes back, either because they finally get some value for him, or work out a deal where they release him. But they will not force him back. I mean, he would have to say, okay, I'm okay with this. I'll play my last year and then we'll say goodbye.
Yeah, and it is interesting, Damo, because he's the Eagles players rep, and obviously the NFLPA has been wrangling about off-season work. And I know your colleague Les Bowen got in touch with him, asking him about that issue, and he didn't seem interested in it. So It doesn't seem like he's ready to return to Philadelphia or planning to return to Philadelphia. And you go back to the end of the regular season, he had that tearful Zoom press conference. It just seemed like the end. You look at him and Carson on the field after the final game. I don't see that changing, but he is a professional. If people want to hang on their hat on some hope, he is a pro. So maybe the Eagles can go that route.
Yeah. And, I don't think the fence is completely broken. I mean, it wasn't like they had an angry dust up, I think you're right. This is the kind of guy that you could probably talk a little more sense to, as opposed to Carson, where you say, even his agent will look at the situation and say, this would be good. You stay for one more year and it just ends well here. But I think he wants to go someplace else. He knows this isn't a playoff team this year, probably. I think he'd like to go. He's probably got maybe 2, at most 3 years left in his career if he's optimistic. He wants to go someplace where he can play with a winner before he goes out.
All right, Damo, let me give you another hypothetical about a player who seems to be unhappy where he's at these days. Howie Roseman goes to lunch today, goes over to Chicky Pete's, grabs some crab fries, comes back. Secretary hands him a message that someone called while he was gone. It's Brian Gutekunst, the general manager of the Packers, and under the message part it says A-Rod. And Howie's got the sheet in his hands and says, should I return this call immediately? Should I hold off on this one, do a little research? The Eagles aren't going to, if they didn't even think about drafting Justin Fields, they're not going to be interested in Aaron Rodgers, are they?
No, I mean, for two reasons. One, I don't know where you fit him on the cap. And two, I mean, they're looking at a retool here where, next year in 2022, they're starting to get better again. And he'll be at the end of his career. I mean, I don't know how many more years Rodgers wants to play. I mean, Tom Brady's kind of turned this whole age thing upside down, but still, if you're rebuilding or retooling or whatever you want to call this, you don't want to go with a 38-year-old quarterback.
Yeah, but Damo, I mean, you're talking about rebuilding transitions. You're winning 11 games with Aaron Rodgers. Like next year, like this year. If I hear you with the cap.
Yeah.
I mean, and Jody talks, and I joked with you when I was asking you to come on the show, get the Hall of Fame presentation ready for Devontae Smith. If Aaron Rodgers was here, you might be getting the Hall of Fame presentation ready for Devontae Smith. That's how much better he makes receivers, and he makes guys like Robert Tonyan look like stars.
Yeah.
Think about what he would make an actual star look like.
Yeah. No, good point. I mean, this would be a team that nobody would be saying isn't going to make the playoffs this year. But the cat.
No,
just back to the original.
Plus, he doesn't want to be. He's a West Coast guy. He doesn't want to be here. That on top of it.
No.
Yeah.
I don't know what he thinks about hoagies.
I think we could win him over on the hoagie end, but all the concerns you put forth, Tomo, are on point, unfortunately. After the draft, we got a chance to hear a little bit more from Nick Sirianni. The optional workouts, the voluntary workouts, which are being, I would say, fairly attended by Eagle players. Other teams around the league, less so. Eagles okay, but there's a whole bunch of people missing for the Eagles as well. Are the Eagles' new coaching staff getting some things in place? Do you think they're being given a chance to implement the things they want with the players as compared to the other teams in the league? Eagles in a better position or a lesser position?
When you've got a new coaching staff and you're probably not going to have any OTAs, that's not an optimum situation. I mean, I know everybody raves, including the NFLPA, about the benefits of Zoom, but it's especially the guy that suffers the most is your quarterback. I mean, because this is a guy who needs field time, who needs snaps with his teammates. Without any OTAs this year, no matter how much you meet virtually, no matter how much you're in the building there, if you're not out on the field, I don't think it's a good situation for a team, including this one.
I forgot to mention it because we're talking about the draft, Jumbo, but I got to get also your first impressions on Nick Sirianni. I mean, obviously we don't get to be there every day, but the energy, the hands are going, the banging of the microphone, the table,
the
little bit of energy, rock, paper, scissors, all of it.
Yeah.
I do like the energy. I admit that. I think, it was very important for the Eagles to get some juice in the building. They have this younger coaching staff as a whole. There could be good to that and there could be bad to that. And it's hard to say which way this is going to go until we get there. But just your first impressions on Nick Sirianni.
Yeah. I mean, as a person, I like him. I think we're going to get along fine with him as far as the media. Although you never know what, losing, if they end up losing a lot of games, that tends to create a tough relationship between the media and the coach. But I don't know. I have no clue on if he's going to be a good coach or not. We just don't have enough of a history of him to know that. But I think the players are going to like him. I think from everything I know, he's a creative guy. So I think he's gonna find ways to use all the weapons that he has. He's gonna find ways to use those two running backs and move them around the formation. And same thing with Smith. So I'm looking forward to working with him. We had an off the record deal with him at one point, and I just said to him, the only thing I'm asking you is two things. I'm asking you. I said, don't lie to us, because we get a lot of that from just about every coach that's come through, and access. Just be there for us. Tell us. Same with your players. I mean, it's in the Zoom world. Last year was a nightmare with respect to players. We got who they wanted to give us. You couldn't really, you never had a one-on-one, so you really can't have a proper interview with a person. On the Zoom conference calls we do, you get one question and then it's on to the next guy. I think he will be good in that respect. Whether he's going to be coach of the year, we'll find out.
And I'm not sure that it's going to be all that much more different this year, Damo. Maybe in 2022, you guys can get back into the locker room. I think you're going to be zooming your life away again this season. Sorry to say, but that's just my read as of right now.
I don't know about John, but Zoom has extended my career 10 years. I mean, it's like the designated hitter role.
There you go. If it's working for you, more power to you. And I got to note that the one thing that bummed me out about the draft when it was over, I really wanted to know the one-loss record of the 9 guys they picked in rock, paper, scissors against Sirianni. I can't believe we weren't able to get that particular analytic out of the Eagles. But again, I digress, and I'm okay with that. All right, so they've got all their players, undrafted free agents and the like. We're going to get some workouts in for the guys coming in. Again, not everybody going to show. What do you think the tenor is going to be when camp opens up? Jeffrey Lurie used the restructure word. Howie Roseman refused to say rebuilding yesterday, said no, only retooling. We'll never admit to rebuilding. What is going to be the vibe around Eagles camp when they do officially open non-voluntary work and the season gets underway? What do you think it's going to be?
I think there's going to be a lot of enthusiasm. We saw even on the Zoom calls at the end of last year, a lot of these younger players really took to Jalen Hurts. I mean, they were excited about him, excited about playing with him. And Jalen's kind of, from everything I know about him at Oklahoma, it was the same way. I mean, guys like to play for him. So I think, with the transition here to a younger team, we're going to see that kind of enthusiasm, I think, early on.
All right, Damo, last one from me. Since I have you here, I got to talk Hall of Fame. Eric Allen, I think, would be the closest, the next sort of Eagle to get in there. But some other underrated, Seth Joyner, very underrated player in my estimation.
Yeah.
Just moving forward, and I would assume that you think Eric Allen should be a Hall of Famer. And if you look at his numbers, I mean, it's tough to argue in any other direction. Why do you think he hasn't gotten that traction?
I'm not sure, especially after some guys like Aeneas Williams and a few others with similar numbers made it. Last 4 years or so, I've lobbied hard for Eric, sent out letters before the early votes, and last year he made the final 25 for the first time, which I think was a step in the right direction. I'd done the same thing with Sam Mills, pushing for him for several years, and he finally made it to the final 25, and then he made it to the final 15, and has been in the room the last couple of years. I don't know; it's going to be a while before I think he's got a shot at ever getting in. Probably might be by the time he becomes eligible to get in as a veteran. But same thing with Eric. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of years left before he's a senior committee guy. But he deserves. I think he's good enough to be a Hall of Famer. You mentioned Seth. I mean, Seth's. I've talked to his wife online about his candidacy, and I said, I think he belongs in. Right, he belongs in the room for discussion. I said, but I can only do this one at a time. If I push too many guys, it's like. So I've been pushing Eric, and I said Seth's next in line here, but clearly the next Eagle that should get in is Dick Vermeil. This year they'll be putting in the coaches have gone into a contributor area now, so they don't have to compete with players, but they're like last year they took 2 This year, I think they're only going to take one. My guess is it's between him and Mike Holmgren. I hope Dick makes it. I mean, the problem is you can't convince people what he did in Philadelphia. I mean, what he started with.
Yeah,
that team was so bad. No picks above the third round for 3 years, and he turned that team into a Super Bowl team. And then retires and comes back and wins a Super Bowl and with the Rams. So I mean, I think but I think in the next year or two, Dick Vermeil will be in the Hall of Fame. So that that'll be good.
That's good to hear. Damo, last question for me is something John and I discussed in the first segment of the show, and it's certainly a major topic of conversation here. The angst in the Eagles war room over the weekend became a major viral video. Howie Roseman and Tom Donahoe reacting to an Eagles pick and the like. Just give me a general opinion on what transpired there. Is it something that Eagle fans should be up in arms about? Oh my God, everything that's being said about the dysfunction is right on. Is it the heat of the moment, war room? You make a pick, guys get a little on edge, and then a round later it's forgotten and you move on and you rebuild your team. A big deal for the Eagles or a big nothing burger? How would you relate to what happened in the draft room over the weekend?
Well, the exchange itself isn't a big deal, Jody. We've all been around this league long enough to know that this kind of thing goes on in every draft room every year. I mean, like I wrote the other day, Bill Parcells and George Young used to practically wrestle on the floor. I mean, that's how they would differ on just about every player George picked. So the difference is there's not a camera there catching it on there. And I think this is, I mean, Tom and Howie have had a good relationship. He brought Tom in, for God's sakes. So I think from that point, there's, it's overplayed. But the reason they were at odds was the Aaron Robinson situation. And that is a big deal because if Aaron Robinson turns out to be a player and Milton Williams doesn't, that's just going to hang there for a long time.
Damo, we appreciate you coming on, getting up early with us. Yes, may Zoom extend all our careers for that many more years. He's been covering Eagles for a long time. I've been talking about it. McMullen's as good at it as anybody we know. We appreciate your coming together with us today, and we will certainly be tapping into your expertise again.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks.
That is Paul Domowitch, a fellow Marlton guy over here in Jersey. He and I actually wouldn't have to do Zoom. We could meet at the park. It would take us each about 3 minutes to get there. Never a bad thing to talk Eagle football with Paul Domowitch. He is John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. You're tuned to Birds 365. Come right back.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.